I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Originalism is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo takes 0, nada, nil, no days off. Mr. Kuo, how are you feeling? Post-finals, NBA bubble is over. You are back. What's going on?
Finally hitting my stride, man. It's taken up till this moment, but I'm fully I'm totally warmed up. I've done my stretching, and I am jamming and slamming.
Oh, that is great to hear.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm back from the bubble. I was just down there for the last 4 months in the bubble, the burger bubble, in the Checkers Challenge. It was less heralded than the NBA bubble. But we ate burgers every day, and the burger champs are now undefeated.
You got that burger bod. I had an Impossible Burger this weekend. It was really good, man.
The streets are saying that you ordered Impossible Burger and then put bacon on top.
I did. This is like a weird thing that I grew up with in my household, where my mom and dad would cook vegetarian stuff, but it was never a vegetarian substitute, because it would always it would be flavored with meat, but it would be like what we call fake duck or like fake seitan. Fake pork or whatever, which is a seitan. But I think we talked about this before, but just to relitigate, my vegetarian point of view is a little less meat everywhere is good.
I would agree with that. And I don't think there's any confliction by saying I prefer a vegetarian version of something, but I also would like a little bit of that good greasy protein.
There's no, like, a couple of my vegan friends who grew up vegan would always say, a hamburger's and all the fixins, lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, pickles, or a hot dog's all in the fixins, mustard, relish, onions. That's so not true, man. It's in that greasy patty, and that's the thing that's hard to divorce. But, you get to a point where you can mix it up a little bit.
I've never had either of the two main competitive non-meat meats.
You mean
Impossible
Beyond?
Burger or Beyond. I've never had either. I might have had a bite of one.
How is that possible?
I don't eat a lot of burgers.
I know, but you don't like mash it up into sauce or make like little Frankenstein meatballs or anything?
No. I only eat burgers when I'm in the burger bubble.
You're a day one burger bubble, so that's a lot of burgers.
Yeah, no, I really do not indulge in burgers too often. But I did have a burger at Odeon, and the fries were not back. It was still potato chips or a $9 side order of fingerling potatoes. However, it has come to my attention that after being shamed by Nate Freeman and by everyone who yelled about their fries, the fries are back as of yesterday.
Full disclosure, I was with you at Odeon, and we were responsibly sitting with a friend of ours who was just berating the waitress in a funny way. But he ordered fingerling potatoes, but he asked if she could maybe cut them small and fry them really long, almost to the point of a French fry, which I thought was really funny.
I had done the fingerling potato as a substitute for chips at a previous trip to Odeon, and it was not a fair substitute. So I did appreciate his attempt to say, and then deep fry them twice. And
can you put more oil in the pan and let them go for a while?
And slice them into matchsticks, let's say.
That food is, okay, let me reframe this. I look at the menu and I have trouble figuring out what I want to eat because nothing speaks to me on that thing. So by the time the awesome waiters and waitresses come up and ask us what we'd like, I have no clue, man. I'm just like Caesar salad with some salmon, maybe a dip.
I don't know why that menu does not speak to me. It might be because I've eaten the stuff on it multiple times.
It's standard like 90s bistro New York stuff. It's it's the same people who do what's that famous one that I'm blanking on right now? The most famous bistro in all the
Balthazar?
world. Yes. Keith McNally, right? And different people. And that is an amazing restaurant. I love Balthazar. But this one seems like just kind of a Baby Jordan version of it. It's a Harold Miner. And I had the privilege, the honor of eating at Cookie's Day One spot, Le Crocodile. That menu is amazing, man. Everything on that menu pops.
I think Odeon is really best for martinis and fries. So it's good to know that the fries are back. But it's about who's there. It's about the scene. It's about Tribeca. It's about the history of the place. I don't think Odeon is necessarily somewhere that you go with the anticipation of having a banger meal, which is very different from, say, Le Crocodile or even other McNally places to some degree. I think most of them, the ones that are still open, I think most of them did survive in large part because of the aesthetics and because of the crowd and because of the lighting and things that went sort of beyond the menu.
Yeah, and this is Michael Jordan related because I demand much more from that food a little bit because it's not necessarily cheap. And I think everyone loves the Jordan 1s, the Jordan 2s, the Jordan 3s, the 4s, the 5s, the 6s. And then as soon as we creep into the Jordan shoes a little bit, it's like, yeah, I don't really cop those. I think I had a pair of those. And so what I'm saying is we can all do better, Ben.
Agree to disagree. I'm very forgiving of restaurants with bad food while simultaneously wondering how that's still possible in 2020. Why don't you just hire someone who knows what they're doing? We do it a certain way. No one likes it, but we're going to lean into it. I respect that as well.
Yeah.
Our food is shit. We have shit food. Order what you want. Doesn't really matter. You're here to hang, and we'll serve you whatever we feel like it.
Well, if Shaquille O'Neal could hit free throws, he would be undeniably the best player of all time. If Odeon served good food, it would be an unfair advantage.
It's kind of true. If the Knicks had good general management, they would enjoy all these advantages that other teams don't have. So they need guys in charge who are completely clueless to lower the playing field.
Parity is baked into life, man.
Yeah, it's not to lower the playing field, but to even the playing field.
Yeah. Parody is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The Odeon with banging food would be unfair.
It would be cheat code stuff, right?
Be a walking bucket of fries.
It would be DeAndre Jordan bombing from 3 and hitting free throws. He would just be one of the greats. But instead, he's just slamming and jamming like I am on this pod in Brooklyn at brunch.
So, yeah, that's true. It would be a problem. A real predicament.
It would be a conundrum.
How do you feel about Tribeca these days? Kind of walking around there the other night. Sort of into it.
Growing up in New York City and around New York, I always dreamt that when I was an adult, I would live in Tribeca. I always thought that somehow things would work out, sort of in the way that people say, when I win the lottery, I will do this and I will buy that. So as a kid, I always thought when I'm successful professionally and when Cookies Hoops takes me to that Tribeca loft, I will live in one of these, spaces with an elevator that opens up into it with an open kitchen. And I love it so much, but it's like a remnant of my childhood. And I know feasibly it's just impossible. And I do get a little sad, defund Whist, knowing that I'll probably never roll that Tribeca life. I love it.
You and Jay-Z on parallel paths. He ended up in Tribeca.
There's no place in Brooklyn big enough for Jay-Z, man. There's
Remember
no
when he was
place
supposed
nice
to buy the clock tower? Like, he's buying the clock tower.
Did he buy the clock tower?
He might have got an apartment in there, if I remember correctly.
Wow. There's a cool radio station that was on the roof of that, or the top where the clock is. Before a podcast, I did a radio interview in there, and you could see the clock moving, and it was in like an old art space. Whatever. That's a cool-ass building, man.
Tribeca is even more quiet and sort of eerie than normal because all the financial guys are gone. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to be around Wall Street. There's no reason to be down there. People who have the financial means to live in Tribeca generally have the financial means to also be in the Hamptons or also be upstate or also be wherever. So it's very, very quiet. And I think we discussed this at the time, and there's no nighttime really in New York right now. There is, of course, like you could go over by like the East River and sit outside, or people hang out at different places, but everything closes at midnight. It's this quasi-puritanical state where like last call 10:30. Like what is this?
There's a prejudice against our people, Ben. Mm-hmm. There has been a prejudice against us for our whole lives, which is shaming the night people.
It's true.
And, nerds and scientists and whoever say that some people's brains work better at night and some people's brains work better during the early morning. But there's no difference, right? Like, no one is necessarily lazier than the other, but some people have different vibes. And I think me and you are in that 12 to 4 a.m. vibe.
It's definitely steeped in some farmer shit. Like early to bed, early to rise.
This is some bootstrap shit I don't give a fuck about.
No, it's farmer shit. Oh, gotta wake up in the morning and till the rutabaga crops.
A shout out to rutabaga and to farmers, but
no disrespect to rutabaga nor
not
farmers.
going there. Please, farm Twitter. We don't want to hear about this in the
I
comments.
don't want that smoke with farm Instagram.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sky High. But
yeah.
But my point here is this is part of American culture, is the idea that waking up early is virtuous. And we even see it with those articles that periodically run about the sleeping schedules and the daily routine of high achievers. And ultimately, they always like wake up at 3:20 in the morning and go to bed at 6:30 p.m. And everyone's like, see, this is great. This is how you become successful. You wake up at 4 in the morning, you work out for 6 hours like Mark Wahlberg and members of the BMM, and then you will have a great career trajectory because you're not wasting your time out doing things in the dark.
Meanwhile, he's meditating, quote unquote, for 4 hours randomly throughout the day. I'm like, I'm just going to rest my eyes.
I'm going to take a lying down meditation with the windows drawn in my pajamas for 4 hours.
I'm going to self-respect with this Boston Celtics nightie and this Boston Celtics nightcap and this Boston Celtics face mask.
Going to get into my Boston Celtics race car bed.
Do you have one?
With my Tatum life-sized pillow and quickly meditate. I'm going to ground myself.
But I get it, like flowers bloom in the sun, mold grows in the dark. Like, this all makes total sense to me. There's creepy crawly night things at night. Cool ass raccoons and possum come out. The rats come out. I love rodents. But the human thing is always baffling to me because there was for a while people pushing the idea of like while you were sleeping. Remember that? It's like while you were sleeping. I think it was
I remember that magazine.
Yeah, it was like a subculture graffiti thing. And I love sleep. Let me go on the record. I think sleep is huge. It's just massive, man. So I like to get my sleep periodically throughout the day. But
yeah, just meditation with your Mitch Robinson life-size body pillow.
It's so the bed is like a race car, but it's blue and orange, and it has goth markings all over it, like New York City skylines, Patrick Ewing silhouettes,
Like
but-
goth runes.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody knows at this point. My favorite things that we've debunked are like MSG is fine for you. It's just salt. There's no such thing as a sugar high. Kids are just excited when there's cake around because it's someone's birthday or a reason to celebrate. And sleep is like can be had at any point, and waking up early is not necessarily working harder.
I do think it has to do with American, like, as you said, bootstraps culture. We've seen it with our guy Jimmy Butler. I'm at the gym at 3 a.m. You're like, are you just waking up early or going to bed late? I don't even know at this point.
Yeah.
But in New York City, like post-COVID era, the last call for outdoor seating is 11 o'clock, which is understandable because that's more or less always been last call for outdoor spaces because of neighbors and things like that. And the indoor final call, like the closure legally for everywhere, restaurant or bar or anything, is midnight. So as a city that was always very, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a city that did not shame the night owl in the way that other places do. The 24 hours in New York City. We know that wasn't exactly true, but there still were those possibilities. You could go in and get dinner at 2 a.m.
For sure. A good dinner.
Yeah, there were bars that were open till 4. You know, like it was, I mean, there are in many cities, but New York prided itself on not necessarily shaming the night owl. There's a nightlife community that is very different from that of sort of a normie community in any other city in America other than maybe like Miami, which they really do their thing. But all these subcultures that exist at night. And now they don't not exist. They're still here. But it is wild to not have anywhere to go at like 11 o'clock. I was with a buddy. We watched the Lakers Heat game, game 5, I guess. And he was like, wait, we can't go somewhere? We can't just go get a beer around the corner? We can't do anything. I'm like, no, there are literally no options. There are no bars, there are no restaurants. Every single place that we could conceivably go is now closed.
And this originally happened during COVID, the first few months, because to protect our essential workers, right? To make sure there was a clear pathway for doctors and nurses and people delivering food to be able to operate safely in the middle of the night. Go home, or go to work. And now that we know more about COVID, it seems like a layover. I mean, your boy, your dude, your favorite guy, Bill de Blasio, is doing a very poor job of this, to say the least. I don't think he's seeing this in real time. Whatever, complaining about BDB, the notorious BDB is canon at this point. But I think we do have to protect our essential workers and people who work in these places. But at this point, you can stay open till 1, man. Like it. Everything's moving.
Yes, I don't think there's a huge population of people that on a Tuesday night right now wants to be out till 4 in the morning. I'm not even suggesting that.
Exactly.
But the fact that there is this cutoff by law is what bugs me. If restaurants or bars could say, hey, we want to stay open till 2. We're down. We want to serve people. We think that there's a community of people who want to spend money until 2 a.m. and have nowhere to go. And that's our target audience right now. I think they should be allowed at least to see if that works. Yeah. It may be a total non-starter. Maybe it doesn't even make sense to be open on Mondays and Tuesdays. Yeah. I don't know. But being is it Cuomo or is it de Blasio? Whatever. By government decree of everything shutting at midnight because of COVID it's just corny to me. And also, I guess the main excuse would go back to what you were just saying, and that, well, we need their workers to be able to take public transportation and get home. And my response to that is, why are we still closing the subway at 1 then? Yep. What's that about? Yeah. Because we're spraying down the cars? We already know that that's not a big deal. We know that. Yeah. Like the whole deep cleaning, that's bullshit. That's surface contact. It's a non-issue. So we're shutting down the subways for a non-issue, which means that we can't have places open up until after midnight. So no one in New York City can go get a cocktail after midnight because we want to clean the trains.
Yeah, it's not even the bar scene. It's just people who exist at night. And like you said a few minutes ago, there was a certain dignity to New York. If you're like, you don't necessarily want to go drinking, but you want to read the newspaper and have a cup of coffee and a sandwich at 3 a.m., you could do that in New York because there was an option, right?
And also, I am talking in this case about indoor places, which I don't think any of us are crazy about either. Because if you're going to close down outdoor spaces at 11 because of noises for neighbors, which I think you could probably push until like 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, perhaps. Yeah. But we are talking about then people eating or drinking inside, which is like another level of problems or another issue. So like there are not a lot of excellent solutions here, but it is weird to be in a city that is now almost like Saudi Arabian in it and its limitations on socializing.
I mean, and I don't want to sound naive either. Weirdness comes out at night.
Don't do it. Don't sound naive.
And I love the hours the witching hours because you get all the freaks, and I love the freaks, and I sit around and I try to find the people that remind me of that scene. And our buddy, Pascal Spengeman, opened up his gallery, and I got to see some of those freaks. He opened a new gallery called Broadway, ungoogleable, but it's showing contemporary art. And they had their first opening that me and you attended, and the freaks came out. But it was in broad daylight. Instead of a 6 to 8 opening, it was a 4 to 6 opening for safety. And there were people that I've seen around haunting the Lower East Side for 2 decades in crazy wild bands that were like from the Knitting Factory era and, that John Zorn kind of bloodline. And they were there, and I was so excited to see them because I had not been out at night, and they had kind of disappeared, like it scampered away like roaches in the sunlight. But they were there, and it made me so happy to see these guys. Very pale people in the daylight.
So this kind of brings us to the latest New York Magazine cover, which is an airplane carrying a banner flying through New York City. And it's an actual photo, as far as I can tell. It's not an illustration. They commissioned an airplane to have a banner that says "Miss You." And I'm not entirely sure what the article was, but our friend, or if there even was one that corresponded to it, if it was just an image. But our friend Caitlin Phillips on Twitter, she made a tweet that kind of said, "Who is this for? Like, who is missing what? More or less, is this for people who are like still inside?" And these are her words: doing puzzles and ordering stacks of takeout food and they're hiding. Is that who you think your audience is? And that was what was more interesting than this idea of WIST defunding. Of who are we talking about here? Who's like missing the city? Are we talking about people who are New York Magazine readers who left New York and they missed the city? Yeah. Are we talking about people who are here but in self-isolation? Who is this for? Or is it just a concept?
I mean, WIST is great marketing, right? It is a definitive strategy, I think. And I think where people like me, you, and Caitlin kind of bristle at this message that New York Magazine is pushing is it feels like marketing, and it doesn't feel like it's describing our experience. And even, when you read when you scratch a little deeper, the editor-in-chief, David Haskell, to quote him, we're in an extended pause that is devastating almost any way you slice it, though not all, since there's also certain loveliness to the looser, quieter, less commercial city. So he's trying to play both angles here, like this is a disaster, there's disaster marketing, and then there is WIST marketing. And it is annoying, but I know where he's coming from, and I don't know if there's a way out of this cage of annoyance,
Yeah, I understand, and I feel some of the mild WIST. I don't get too much WISty.
No,
but I feel that the city is different and we miss elements of it. Our friends who left, whatever.
I talked to them. Yeah, whatever.
Sure,
I text them. I'll text them right now.
Yeah.
FaceTime.
Exactly. There's people that I haven't seen that I would like to see, but it is what it is. And I don't view that as like, oh, COVID took my friends away. I'm like, sure. Like, yeah. I don't see as many people as I used to. That's true. And I do miss things at night, and I do miss those parts of New York City. But I also viewed 2019 New York as kind of shitty.
It was not the greatest year.
Not great. You know, after I've lived here over 21 years, and looking at 2019 would hardly be viewed, at least from my vantage point, as like a pinnacle of New York City in any way. So I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be missing. I would almost say death, pestilence, mass unemployment notwithstanding, that New York right now is a more interesting and enjoyable place than it was in 2019 on a certain level. But that's not to diminish all the fucked up stuff that has happened because of COVID.
Right. And I was having this thought when your favorite president came down with COVID in the middle of the night. And there was a feeling, stick with me here, this is kind of a longer thought, but daytime Twitter kind of was an interloper to nighttime Twitter. Because, you know, like, nighttime Twitter isn't a thing, but it's kind of a thing. There's different conversations on there. The debate's not as hot. It's kind of funnier, in my opinion. And I talk to the same people on my feed. I know they kind of wake up at, like, 1 a.m. And it's the same 5 people. And it has a vibe to it. And that vibe, to me, is a distinct New York feeling. I only say that because New York is the only place I know. But I imagine it to be a strong kind of visceral feeling for somebody who visits, you know? It's just like, oh, there's a different kind of discussion happening at like 3 a.m. in New York City, IRL. And I feel like 2019 was a rebuilding year. It was the procedure almost. We were kind of figuring out the rubble that Bloomberg left us. And, you know, it's all related to real estate and jobs and healthcare. And we're trying to figure out, like, how this would realign. And it was kind of taking form in Queens and maybe farther out in East Brooklyn and leaving Manhattan. And it was a restart a little bit. And COVID kind of dropped during that and kind of washed away all the foundational things that were being set up.
I guess this is where I'm mildly irked by the lack of nighttime activities or the sort of governmental kibosh on the late hang, is that I do think if you are here and you were sticking around New York and you're trying to make the best of it and you're part of the cultural tapestry and you're part of communities being stymied by the government and kind of encouraged to then hang out indoors and in places like, you know, secret parties, things like that, you know, illegal lofts, illegal raves, like those are sort of being encouraged at this point when you say you can't legally do things at night. It's kind of punishing the people who are trying to make the best of it.
I mean, this has been a day one, right? When you talk about the generation before us, the Mud Club generation, they would say the same things to us, being like, we were just trying to contribute to this city. This is what every cultural like voice says, right? We were trying to make the city a better place instead of all these suits, but the law came down on us. And I think that's like a traditional cyclical thing in the way we talk about almost everything, including sports.
Yes. But I also think when the I Miss You New York banner and people who are like, oh, I've just been in the Catskills this whole time. I've been out in Montauk. I miss New York. I'm like, you might not have been contributing that much. And that's said without judgment.
Right.
But like your version of what you're missing might not be what I find particularly compelling or even a great part about New York City. But that doesn't mean mine are right or mine are any more noble, although I am very gallant.
I remember making a t-shirt for one of our favorite bars, and it was 10 years ago they were booted from their location and it said, "I miss the old New York." You know, like this is just traditional, and it was tongue in cheek, because at the time it seemed ridiculous. Like things just change. But yeah, I mean, when you look at Tribeca, and it is deeply unattainable for people like you and me. It used to not be. You know, I guess like Robert De Niro changed the whole vibe down there. But even Soho, I remember it being dangerous in Soho. And then it having all the galleries. Now it's just totally boring. It's the most boring place in New York almost.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing is that if someone says, what I miss about New York City is cute rooftop parties with my friends in condos. Like, I get it. That was your version of an awesome night, and I'm not disputing that's what you liked best about the city. Like, that's fine. It's just my version was different. And we are people who like being out, and we like being in a bar, and we like shooting the shit with different people, and sort of the rotating cast of people who will filter through the environment over the course of a night. Ooh, look who's here. Chat up. Oh, so-and-so just showed up. Hey, how are you? What's going on? And we like that kind of social environment. But other people might hate that. Other people might never go out and be out until 3 a.m. in bars, just sort of seeing who comes through and who arrives. We like that. Other people are like, that's what you miss? You miss that? Yeah. I miss putting on a little black dress and going to a classy dinner party on the roof of a condo. Now that's awesome.
I mean, I've become a tourist in this place. You know, I've been here as long as you have, maybe, off and on longer. And like, I don't feel like it belongs to me anymore. So I'll walk out and see bonobos cutting off the sidewalk in their Allbirds shoes and their awesome sunglasses. And I'll be like, this is their place now. I am the interloper.
Yeah, and I think that's what's changed about COVID a bit. I do feel more possessiveness. Mm-hmm. Where I'm like, a lot of those people left. I stayed. I was here. We saw the grim stuff. We're trying to still hang out. We're still trying to support restaurants. We're trying to see our friends when we can, in a safe manner, etc. I do feel a little bit more like, all right, you guys washed out. Yeah. You were not, you didn't want the smoke.
You were not the first to the gym and the last to leave.
You guys did not want New York City enough.
Practice.
I showed up at the bar at 2 a.m.
Well, when you said a few minutes ago, contribute to New York City, I read that, to be clear, I agree, and I read that as just showing up, just like buying a bagel, or going to a movie. Like it doesn't have to be like, oh, I started a club and it was active for 10 years. Thank God for the people who do that. I love them so much because they take that mantle. But all you do is like buy a slice or two. Like that's all I'm asking for. Kind of.
I'm just saying be interesting.
Oh, yeah. That's hard.
Show up and be somewhat interesting.
What percentage of interesting people do you know? I know I'm out of that, but like in your life, how many interesting people do you know?
I mean, I'm not even claiming I'm interesting. I'm just going to sit here and talk about Al Horford until you leave me alone at the bar.
We're doing the Mystery Science Theater thing. Like we're looking at the thing.
Yeah, you are right. Interesting is too much to ask. I guess what I mean is maybe don't be actively awful.
That's fair. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. But
I wonder what awful means these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just throwing out adjectives.
Yeah.
Personally, though, thinking about when we've sort of been at a restaurant or walked around, I just do feel like the city has been reclaimed a little bit for people who genuinely like New York City, and that people who fled might not have really liked it as much. And again, this is just like the boots on the ground, self-serving ideology that I'm spouting.
And I agree with people who don't like it. Like a few weeks ago, I met up with you for a nice outdoor, safe environment meal. And I was like, ooh, who ordered camembert? There's such a nice waft of expensive cheese at the table. No cheese. It was a pile of garbage next to us. I thought you guys had ordered a cheese plate.
That shit was aggressive.
It was aggressive next to one of our buddies' restaurants, and he was struggling. He was like, can someone take this garbage away? I guess he had run after a garbage truck.
Yeah, I saw that.
Begging for them to take the garbage away.
Yo! Yo!
Yeah, man. And this is a place where sometimes celebrities go to eat, and sometimes people like you and me go to eat. And
Minor
it just
celebrities,
sucks.
yes.
Famously, Beck, I think, recently, who is I guess a minor celebrity now. Is he a C-list celebrity? Grammy award-winning musician Beck?
Give him a B.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe a B minus.
Yeah. We're really easy. We eased up on Scientologists, haven't we?
I mean, there's so many things to believe in these days. Like, when QAnon shows up, you're like, so you,
Yeah,
you guys
exactly.
just believe in like some other shit? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So you're not trying to, assassinate like pizza purveyors. All right, okay, yeah.
Right.
Follow on with
Yeah.
your alien and whatever it is. Yeah, great.
Yeah, QAnon takes the cake. So like even Scientologists like, whew, we dodged that one. But I think that people who don't like New York City have really good reasons. It's expensive. Get out of here, man. It's gross and dirty. It's literally dirty. I hear you. The public transportation sucks. I get tickets when I park my car in the wrong place. My landlord won't give me a rent break. It is just really, the degree of difficulty is very, very high.
Yeah, and I'm not even taking any pride in being like, stuck it out. I'm saying I enjoy it a little more now because it's for the reasons that you described before. It's a little quieter, it's a little weirder, and I like those elements. I have no judgment against people who said, I'm done with this shit. I'm out of here. I'm moving upstate. I'm doing whatever. Like, none at all. That's totally cool. Like, do your thing. There is a massive de-incentivization to be in New York City right now. And if you don't feel like dealing with it, that's cool. And it's the same way as when COVID first came. I was even probably more empathetic to people who just bounced than scientifically I should have been. Because I was like, if you just, like, I'm out of here. I'm scared. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to say don't come back.
Yeah.
You're up there COVID ratting around, taking the virus to Maine. I'm like, whatever.
And me and you had like no options. We didn't have like a place to go. And it's like, I'm gonna go to my summer house. Shout out to summer houses. I love them. Please invite me over. But when it's safe. But we didn't have those places to eject to. And
The funniest thing was people who were snotty. Oh, I guess you went up to your place in Woodstock. You should have stayed in New York City if you really wanted it more.
No,
Like,
I would have gone.
I'm like, did you have a spot in Woodstock that's empty and you're just in New York City? Well, of course not.
I was like, oh, that looks so nice. Yeah, and it was scary here. And, I use the same words to describe COVID, which is like, but this is to describe the city. I feel like we've seen enough of New York. And if it's for you, and it might not be, but I think it's for us, I cannot unsee that. And there's nowhere else that offers that potential. The ceiling might be Luol Deng now, but I'll take it because the possibility of seeing the things I love to see again are going to happen here, I think.
And it's also, this is part of the story. It's part of the story. 9/11 was part of the story. The blackout was part of the story. Hurricanes were part of the story. COVID is part of the story. Like,
AIDS
is part of the story. I'm thinking like the last 20 years. Giuliani is part of the story. Like, you live through it, and then you keep it moving.
for sure.
In other keeping it moving news, I understand that you've been watching the Supreme Court confirmation hearings.
So I have defunded caring about the minutia of politics because it just eats me alive. It like devours me. It's like, oh, he's such a hypocrite, and I stew about it, and I'm like, I have to not care about this. And I figured this one out maybe during COVID because of fear. probably. So I'm watching it, but I refuse to get caught up in it because I love the Supreme Court. I think it's like a really cool, fascinating, interesting thing. My beliefs don't align with this Senate or this nominee or this president, but this process is really interesting to me. I think she's going to get fast-tracked into that seat. And it makes me think of Michael Jordan a bit. And I say that only because these guys in this hearing are like these dusty... If they're not dusty physically, they're dusty mentally. And they are surely Jordan stans, being like, there is a right way to do this. And I think there's a right way for our country to behave. Like, so this, Coney Barrett is a disciple of Scalia, who believed the Constitution should remain as the founders imagined it, as like trapped in amber, which is really interesting to me because it doesn't take into account the way we evolve. But fair enough. There's some Bill Russell-isms in here, which or Bob Cousy-isms, which is endlessly interesting.
Right. I mean, if you're what's the phrase they use? It's like literally holding the Constitution and saying this is all that matters from this kind of orthodoxy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a specific terminology for this ideology. I think there is one. Whatever.
Yeah, there is.
Constructionist or something. I forget.
Yeah, I forget.
But there is obviously a basketball parallel because it's the people who are mad at James Harden. That's a travel. I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. It might have gotten called a travel in Abner Doubleday's. Abner Doubleday? Mm-hmm. No, it's baseball. Sorry, I'm all over the place. It might have gotten called a travel in the gym class where basketball was invented, but it's okay now. And I think the idea that the Constitution is not a living document is bizarre to me.
Oh, it's so weird.
Like our values are different. Like people aren't property anymore. It's like
the internet happened.
But also we don't use dentistry from 1776.
Or horses and carriages.
We don't use anything
Muskets.
from there. Why would these schmoes have a concept for government that would be better than what we could come up with today if we thought about it? Who the fuck were they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but like John Adams said this. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I defer to John Adams then.
I find it to be frustrating on NBA Twitter when you're trying to draw out something interesting, even some jokes about the NBA Finals. And the originalists, I think you're looking for that word, right?
Yeah.
Are
like James Naismith originalists.
Yeah, like Jordan, baby. Call me when someone does something Jordan did. And I'm like, can you just leave my feet? Okay, respect, I hear you. The NBA Twitter is like a big cloud. But, like, can we just get some jokes off? Even if they're a bit snarky, whatever. The interns sometimes get more gruel, sometimes less gruel, but always gruel.
Always less.
I mean, always less. But watching the Supreme Court hearing makes me... I'm up in my feelings in a bunch of ways because we are getting close to that age, never mentally, but physically, like to the people that like Coney Barrett is like not that old, and these are the adults in the room. That said, I watched this thing for 2 minutes or 2 hours and I'm like, these guys are so out of touch. I hope in our lifetimes somebody with a handle on shit is in a position of power.
What bugs me out is not only the fact that you can confirm a Supreme Court justice for life with a 50% vote, meaning that whoever is in charge of a political party.
Well, don't cry, man. It's just the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
Right, but that the next 30 years, the lives of like unborn children, 5-year-olds, 1-year-olds, my nieces, my nephews, like little kids, people who aren't even here yet, will be influenced by the fact that today we said, yeah, 50%, that makes total sense that whoever has the most votes in the Senate if they have a majority, can basically force feed anyone into the Supreme Court for the rest of their lives. And that someone today may be influenced, someone who's not even here yet will have their life affected by Trump putting in a hyper-conservative who is going to potentially get rid of like Roe v. Wade and, healthcare. That's the bummer to me. Is like, these are when you look at a basketball analogy and say, oh, you've traded away your picks for the next 5 years. Oh, you have a bunch of pick swaps. You're fucking up the future of this country today because of mistakes that were made. But
then look at the NBA champion. They've done exactly that, and they've won it all, right? So the confusing.
I did not say this was a perfect analog.
No, I hear you, and that's why I think that I'm up in my feelings in a whole bunch of ways because I constantly question. Can I be wrong? Is it possible that I'm wrong?
No, that's not possible. And do I think Rob Pelinka should be on the Supreme Court? The answer is surprisingly yes.
Yeah, but I do think, I don't know, I don't want to go into politics that much, but I just think this process of trying to figure out who this nominee is as a person is really interesting, and it's clouded with all this weird language, and I wonder when we're going to cut through this kind of rhetoric, and we're not there quite yet, and our president has taken a different route, and I just really am looking, Gen X tranquility. I think our generation isn't really a political one, but when millennials get to positions of legislative power, I'm really interested in a shift.
I just think the 60% vote versus 50% makes such a big difference because people could try to usher in someone who had their politics, but it could easily be stymied by the other party and say, no, this is unacceptable, bring someone else in. And the ability now to have people just kind of bullshit their way up there to give plausible deniability, and then the party in charge just votes him in, or her in this case, is very different from how we used to have to parse language and at least create a different kind of plausible deniability in the past. This is just like transparently nonsense. And they can at the end of the day say like, yeah, so we're just voting along party lines. We don't have to convince anyone in your party that this person should be on the Supreme Court for the rest of their lives. And I'm talking Rob Pelinka.
Do you have anyone in your life who's very religious? Like, do you have a friend who's a devout Christian?
No.
I have a couple. They're really smart people, but they're dedicated to their faith. It's really interesting. I don't really talk politics with them, but it is something that I try to think about all the time. Like, what would my friend say or think? And
as in, like, your friend Jesus, and what would he do?
They're well versed in the Bible. They go to church, and they're awesome. They're just so awesome. I love them. They're some of my closest friends. And they are liberals, and they are Democrats, and all of that stuff, and they help people. But I always think about when religion has been a topic in these hearings, and it's really confusing to me because I am lucky enough to have these friends, and it's my job to kind of think harder.
Well, I think religion is kind of just a cudgel in terms of using it to give whatever your belief system is more backbone, more power. And I don't look at religion as being really anything. It's to me, it's kind of just like, and it's a way to bolster and give moral credibility to whatever your opinions are. We've seen it used to justify slavery, and AOC talked about some of this the other day in a way that's better than what I can do right now. But that religion is just an excuse. So I don't really view it as something I have to specifically care about and interpret, because you can apply it to whatever you want.
Yeah, and math has been used to justify racism. It's like it's a brain melter, man.
Right. Again, religion says that we should have segregation. Religion says that we should have, slavery. And then here's Martin Luther King Jr., who uses religion to say we need to have freedom and equality. So, these are two completely divergent positions on the same topic, both using religion. Whatever.
And this conversation we're having doesn't exist on CNN or MSNBC because they are reporters, and they're skewed in their own ways. I watch a ton of Fox too. Op research.
Well, I was just going to say, as the Cookies Hoops Patreons know, this is the number one news source for Supreme Court coverage.
Yeah, sometimes. This is very related to our New York WIST or defunding of that WIST. Is I love going out and meeting people who are super religious, who are awesome, and who we have common interests, let's say basketball. They're oh, well, this is the way I think about the Supreme Court, and this is the way I think about this nominee, and I love it, and I love being in a city that has that. It's the internet too, whatever, as long as you don't follow the bootstrap crowd.
I feel like you just made 7 points and wrapped them in together as one, and I'm still unraveling them all.
Oh, let's pick one. What was your favorite one?
I've already forgotten. Something about the Odeon fries.
Or the cut potatoes that are left in oil for a fry amount of time.
It's not a fry. It's a shoestring potato.
All right. Rank your types of fries right now, 1 through 3. And Keith Van Horn is not a fry, so nice try. A Channing fry.
Let me just tell you what I don't like. I don't like waffle fries.
This is what I don't like. Oh.
Yeah, I said it.
Surface area, baby.
Don't like waffle fries. Do not like sweet potato fries. Do not like the steak fries, the big beefy ones. Do not like those.
Yeah, I hear you.
Do not like curly fries.
What? Oh my God, that's my number one. That's my day one.
Sad. Do not like seasoned curly fries.
Oh.
Yeah, I only like traditional, bistro fries.
Is this McDonald's style or
McDonald's
In-N-Out
style? They can be thicker than McDonald's, but not much thicker. Like Burger King to McDonald's thickness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not Lowry thick fries.
There is no wagon attached to these fries.
Those are the only fries I like. Sure, I will eat waffle fries if they're in front of me. They're okay. Yeah. But in my hierarchy, there is only one, and it is traditional, steak frites. That's the fry I want.
There's no junk in the trunk of your fry.
I am pretty confident that I'm right on this.
That's fair. I accept your terms, but seasoned curly fries is the truth, man. Not the Paul Pierce Poogate truth. The real truth.
I get them. They're good, but it's to me almost a different product. That's not a real fry. That's like a deep fried potato. It's not a fry.
You. The authenticity police is showing
I'm a
up.
fry originalist.
You are a fry originalist, but the real original fries are probably steak fries.
I don't mind steak fries when they're the almost British style, chips.
Oh, you like them mushy?
No, I'm saying I don't like the mushy, but I'm saying that kind of version is again a different kind of food to me. So it's those are just hunks of potato that you fried. Those are fine.
The British, like one of their own, 21 Savage, do things differently over there, and they don't mind mushy fries.
Look, you've already been exposed for mealy apples, and now you like mealy fries.
Mealy apples and mealy fries are different. Mealy fries are a culture. Mealy apples, you're just being a bad shopper.
How have you dealt with being owned by Pablo Torre on your own podcast on a topic that's dear to your heart, such as red apples versus green apples? How was your last, 4 days been?
Are you asking me how them apples taste?
How about?
Listen, I will not take defeat lying down, but I understand he's LeBron. I'm just a little Duncan Robinson running around trying to pick my spots, Ben. So I'll take what I can get.
I know you're not mad, but is the apple cart upset?
I am the proverbial Matt Damon, slamming that napkin up on that glass, baby. Slapping glass, but in a different way.
Now that you've taken a bite from the tree of knowledge.
The Pablo tree of knowledge. That is my religion. Check out that pod, guys. It was a great one.
That was a good one. And yes, thanks to our last two guests. They were both fantastic. Nomi Fry from The New Yorker and Pablo Torre from ESPN. Both splendid guests. So maybe we should talk about basketball now that
I love basketball.
We're almost an hour in. We haven't mentioned, the NBA Finals that ended 2 days ago.
It's a big ass bubble, man.
That was a fucking snoozer of a game 6. But the bubble's over. Long live the bubble. Rest in peace, bubble.
And there's no guarantees we won't have another bubble, but there will always be the first.
You always remember
Yeah.
your first COVID bubble. So where do we want to start with this? LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, they kicked the crap out of Miami in Game 6. Game 5 was wonderful, like a super enjoyable game. Magnificent performances by LeBron, by Jimmy Butler. And then Game 6, the Lakers came out and handled business the way that they were supposed to. And although the final score was not necessarily indicative of how bad of a laughingstock that game was, it was like a 30-point game at one point. It
unraveled real quick.
It was just over by the half, more or less. I kind of stopped paying attention.
My question is, how come it took them 6 games to wake up? It's Jimmy Butler and a bunch of rookies, man. Kendrick Nunn is on the court. Rob Pelinka did a terrible job, man. Clutch got these 2 guys to LA. Amazing. We've never seen 2 players as good in their primes as AD and LeBron James this season. And then Rob Pelinka surrounded with these clowns that took him 6 games to beat Duncan Robinson, man.
This will not necessarily be a popular take.
No, you don't think so?
I'm saying I agree with you. And when I look at last year's playoffs, and I look at Milwaukee, I believe had the best record in the Eastern Conference last year, and they had Malcolm Brogdon on the team. You had the Raptors, who ended up winning the title, and had Kawhi Leonard on their team. And when you look now at that team, you're like, with Van Vliet, Lowry, Siakam, Gasol, Ibaka, like that's a squad. That's a squad, and they did win the title. You had Golden State, who prior to the injuries of Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson were arguably the greatest team in the history of the NBA. They were virtually unbeatable. And then you had the Sixers with the same hero, Jimmy Butler, alongside Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, who were both better than any of his teammates on the Heat, with all due respect to Tyler Hero. But I think those 4 teams were all better than this version of the Lakers because of the supporting cast, and definitely better than this Miami Heat team. So it's a bit of an anticlimactic thing to have the COVID bubble and a finals where you're looking at it and you're saying, this is a flawed Lakers team that ended up kind of just deciding to beat the shit out of a 5 seed in the finals when we had 4 teams last year that were quite badass.
Yeah. And I've posed this idea and gotten a lot of negative response towards it from people who say, well, the Heat are the distillation of the playoff bracket. And, we throw around isms all the time, and, styles make fights always. The bracket is flawed, and I think that what really hurts us when we compare overarching ideas, like who is the best team in the NBA or who is the best player, we use the transitive property too much, which means, like, if A beats B and you beat A, you probably beat B as well because A beat B. Mm-hmm. It's not true. Right? And this is a boxing thing. If a boxer beats another boxer and you beat that boxer, there's no guarantee you beat the first boxer that went down because styles make fights. And I'm so angry at Jokic and Murray. They gave us maybe the highlight of the bub, but Kawhi and PG were built to just dispatch of the Lakers, and we didn't get to see that because they matched up poorly against Jokic.
I agree. And in that series, Denver was the better team. And granted, it went to 7 games.
It was
You know,
awesome.
it was
Yeah.
a good series. It was competitive. But they did not have a solution for Jokic, which in turn made Denver a better team. And you also had Jamal Murray, who is, let's say he's a top 30 player, playing like a top 5 player. He outplayed Paul George, who is a top 10 player. And that combination of Jokic and Murray outplaying Paul George, that was the difference. They were the better team than the Clippers in that series.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. We saw the Lakers. It looked as if they were going to have a very treacherous path to winning a title for LeBron in the bubble. They had to go against Dame Lillard and Portland, who was one of the hottest scorers in the NBA during the bubble. Then you had the Rockets, which presented a weird matchup change.
CJ McCollum was injured.
Right, and Westbrook was also coming back from injury, and he had COVID in the past. And we can talk about the Rockets a little bit later.
Yes.
But their path, it was Portland, the Rockets, and then we looked at it predictively and said, then they have to beat the Clippers, then they have to beat the Bucks. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, so I don't want to get too redundant. But I do think playoff legends and memorable experiences are made in the finals, but also in conference finals, because those are like your toughest rival in your division.
Those are almost more fun.
Almost more fun. And when we think about the wars, especially through the prism of being, knowledgeable about the Knicks in the past and them warring with the Bulls or the Pacers, like those you actually remember far more than them losing to the Spurs or the Rockets in the finals. There's far more
Absolutely
emotion attached to those. And we did not get any emotion out of the Western Conference. We did not get the baggage that comes with LeBron versus Kawhi.
No.
And then we didn't get LeBron versus Giannis in the finals, which would have been the 2 MVP candidates squaring off. And, they would guard each other. They would have to play against each other a lot. And we'd see who was actually better in that way that we judge results. Like, okay, here it is, the 2 best players. Let's see if Giannis has overtaken LeBron as the game's greatest player. And we didn't get that either.
I don't want to hear any of this business that the Heat had more heart than all the East teams to get to that
Heat culture?
Yeah, it's just like that.
Yeah.
Those words mean nothing to me. All of these players have as much heart as the next one. Giannis is struggling to deal with the fact that he lost to the Heat. He has enough heart, trust, right? And of course, Jimmy Butler transformed before our eyes. I love when this happens, right? When we see a player, Cookie's day one, even when he was on the Timberwolves, we're like, that's an alpha player. That's a top alpha dog. And when he went to the Sixers, we were elated, right? Like, that is worth the price that's worth the price we paid. The Sixers paid. Whatever. To get Jimmy in Philly was a coup, and so seeing him excel on this stage is no surprise.
Not at all. Not at all. Jimmy was the Sixers' best player against the Raptors last season. He was magnificent.
Yeah.
And some people kind of were under the impression that his lack of a reliable 3-ball or his age made signing him an issue, his attitude. None of that ever mattered to me. And as I said on this pod, and as I've said going back on Twitter, mid last season, I said Jimmy, Joe, and Ben is a championship core. I know it. It is obvious. I said that so many fucking times, and people would be like, is this a bit? Is it a bit? It's obvious. It's obvious. Jimmy, Joe, and Ben are incredibly good. One can do the things that we just saw in Jimmy, and the other 2 guys are still improving, and they're arguably even better than Jimmy as overall. But activated Jimmy is what they need. They need that guy who can create in the half court. They need that dude. They need that perimeter type of player, because Joel and Ben are not that in those situations. And to me, not to relitigate keeping them, because obviously they should have kept that trio together, but it is very surreal to watch Jimmy do this and say, you fumbled this bag this badly, like you left chips on the table.
My bad to the listeners. I mentioned the Sixers. I should have saved that for later, hour 5 in the pod. But I 1,000% agree. But move. Okay, so back to the finals. I think I am not happy the Lakers won.
You set me up, Quo.
I know I did. My bad. I apologize to our listeners.
I don't. I'm unapologetic. This is on you, Quo.
But you're right in everything you said. Truth bombs, right?
Absolutely.
So I think like the Lakers winning is a kind of nice ribbon to put. I remember when we were talking about the bubble right at the start, and I think I had said I want LeBron James to win this because there's so much happening in this world with the civil rights movement and COVID that we need him to be on a stage. And then things shift so fast. Like, that was not an originalist idea. Things shifted like a month into the bubble, and then shifted again and shifted again. And by the end, I was actively rooting against LeBron James because I wanted more basketball. And he would just he should have won in 3. It should have been Lakers in 3. And it took them 6 games, which I'm very grateful for. But it spoke to me as a poorly constructed idea, what the Lakers were. And I've said this before, but it makes me really happy because this is the Knicks strategy, and there's hope for my damn team.
My take on the Lakers winning is that was the only conclusion here that worked. We needed this. We needed LeBron to win in the bubble. We needed him to win decisively in Game 6. We needed the Lakers, despite them being like a shithead fan base and like
possibly the worst,
and just a completely
no.
I mean, all fans are bad. I just mean generally speaking, they're like. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Lakers fans. It's just a team, it's whatever. But like the sense of entitlement and like finally at long last, LeBron James has come to give us a championship. It's like,
are we anti-coastal
well earned.
elite?
I guess. but my thing was, I'm okay with Kobe erasure when it comes to LeBron winning a title. I'm okay with Lakers fans getting a title as opposed to say like the Boston media mafia. Like
that was the number one.
The Lakers are despised and their fan base is despised and the organization is despised. So I'm kind of all right with them winning, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
They're not Jordanaires. They have their own separate agenda that I don't agree with and I barely care about because Lakers voices are not that loud in media.
This is true.
And but LeBron winning made the right people angry, in my opinion. I play basketball, and there's some Polish cops who will show up, and I was like, you've been watching the NBA Finals? No. Everyone thinks they're an expert on criminal justice. Like, oh, you didn't watch LeBron yesterday? It was incredible. I don't like LeBron. I'm like, okay, hold that L, eat that L. Oh, you're a big Jordan fan? Here's an L for you. Yeah. LeBron might come back and win another championship next year. Then what? As we said, there are no swing voters here. There's no Ken Bones. There's no one who's on the fence and says, this is it.
There's
LeBron won the
Bones
COVID ring. Now it's LeBron.
Yeah.
But keep assembling that resume, Bron.
Yep.
Keep making the argument tougher.
Yeah.
For the Jordan guys. And, I put up a tweet kind of making fun of Michael Jordan for losing in 1995 in the second round to the Orlando Magic.
No shame in there. Shaquille O'Neal's a wonderful player, man.
Good squad.
Yeah.
So people misinterpreted this by saying, yeah, but LeBron lost to this team. I'm like, this is the conversation, though. This is fine, right? Mm-hmm. So you're telling me that, well, sure, Jordan came back from baseball. He said, I'm back. He scored 55 against the Knicks. He scored 31 per game in that series against Orlando. And they lost because they couldn't keep Shaquille O'Neal off the line. Their front court with a rotation of guys like Bill Wennington, Luke Longley, I forget who else, another tall white scrub, got manhandled by Horace Grant and Shaquille O'Neal. That's why they lost the series. It wasn't MJ's fault. He wasn't magnificent, but he was really good. Again, he put up 31, 7, and 4 or something. He was great.
Yeah.
And my point was that, yes, all these guys have taken L's. They've all taken L's. Of course LeBron has taken L's. MJ took L's. Let's just not pretend that they all haven't done that, because this is what basketball is about. It's not about perfection. Oh, 6 for 6 doesn't mean shit, man. Doesn't mean shit. He lost in the second round of the playoffs, taken down by Anthony Avent and Darrell Armstrong. But the point is, LeBron's losses are no worse than Jordan's losses. All these guys take L's because everyone takes L's.
Right. It's that no sin bin baseball thing. You're unsuccessful 70% of the time, and you're a Hall of Famer. But yeah, Jordan missed the playoffs 9 times, and I think it's so funny. I want to go back to something you said about like the Polish cops, you know, being like, I'm not watching the bubble. Like, these guys think they know about this and that. And it's so odd, not to mention cookieshoops.com, where you can purchase these lovely items that just say basketball on them. And I think the bar is very low, but I think it's one of the best things we've ever made, because it's somehow so loaded, right? It's just the plainest idea. It's just like, I'm watching the NFL no sin bin. I'm watching the NBA bubble. It's just like, oh, you lousy liberals. I'm like, wait, what? So you guys hate, I forgot, a homie of ours put this up. Oh, my friend Ian put this up on Twitter. He was like, if you hate the California and New York, big cities, you hate people who want to go out and vote, you hate basketball and football, you hate the things that certain Americans hate, then you're the ones who don't like America. If you're just like, all lives matter, it's just like, oh, now you don't like a portion of our population expressing their voices finally. Like, you're the ones that suck.
Well,
like, we're watching great basketball. I feel bad for you, man.
But this also falls into the exact mind state of sort of ethno-nationalism, where it's white people are America, other people are anti-America. Yeah. Oh, really, white males. This is a country, it's like FUBU, but for white males. For us, by us. Anyone else is just sort of like,
pretty good, yeah.
Like, why are you wearing these FUBU overalls? Take those off. It's not for you, man. This is for white males.
So,
you're trying to vote? No, that's going to take you 9 hours, my guy.
Back to the god LeBron James. I just want to quickly, reading stats is boring until you read his playoff stats. His BPM 2 is 10.6.
That's almost Tatum-esque.
His offensive rating was 124, man. Per game, 27.6, 10.8 rebounds, and 8.8 assists. What in the world is he other than the best player who's ever played basketball?
It's crazy. Those are like Ben Simmons in January numbers.
That was Ben Simmons.
Like Simmons pre-back injury numbers.
yes, right. Pre, during, and post Kardashian Ben Simmons numbers right there.
But LeBron at 35?
He's 35.
Being this good is a testament to many things. I mean, it could be to sports science, technology, his own dedication to craft, his own physical gifts. It is just remarkable to have someone who is, at this point, one of the oldest guys in the NBA still be the best. Really, really incredible. And I know, people will say don't take LeBron for granted, and that's sometimes I do. Sometimes I forget how unique it is to have a player who's given us this duration of excellence and has not tapered off. Being 35 and putting up these kind of performances, these kind of stat lines, these kind of victories, man, it is so unique.
And I agree, and I think he is proof of evolution, because if you took Jordan and combined him with Shaquille O'Neal, and if you said you will have the court vision of Michael Jordan,
no, court vision of Magic Johnson, or Ben Simmons.
But if you put a basketball genius in like the world-beating nuclear weapon body of Shaquille O'Neal, and like, you know, just like perfected it, like trimmed off a little bit of height, added some speed, added some ball handling. Like, what the hell, man? You cannot have LeBron James in a video game. It's not fair.
What's really validating about LeBron is that he was what we were promised.
Yeah, yeah.
And that never happens. Never happens.
These are not French fries. These are home fries.
We hear about Felipe Lopez, like Richie Parker, Telfair. And, okay, these guys are going to be great. This guy's going to be incredible. The Jewish Jordan.
I love it. I love it.
We hear about these prospects, and they're supposed to be so good. And then they're revealed as having flaws. Tim Duncan lived up to his potential.
Hells yeah.
But he didn't also capture the imagination. He was as good as he's supposed to be.
Timmy
lived
Fundamentals,
up to everything.
Squaresville himself.
Squaresville.
The mayor of Squaresville.
The Squaresville alderman. But
better than Jordan.
But LeBron not only was as great as he was supposed to be, he was better. He was the chosen one on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a junior in high school, and he was better than that.
I agree.
He was like Jesus arrived and could fly.
Right.
Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
First, he's making wine out of water. Then he's like doing all this crazy stuff with fish. Now he's dunking on people.
Yeah. It's true. And I think it's odd to see somebody play this many years in the league at age 35 and watch him transform and kind of like adapt to the things around him. And like also the story of him as a self-admitted runner-up. He's like, I'm always finishing second. I know what you guys say about me. I want to win so badly to erase that my own story. And like he is a nuclear weapon. Wherever he goes, I think he will win for the next 2 or 3 years.
I mean, he came in to a situation that was sort of a no-win, and he won.
Yeah, he played. Okay, his opponents were the entire NBA, the refs, coronavirus, racism, Rajon Rondo, Rob Pelinka, Jeannie Buss. Like, all these factors were working against him, and he did his damn thing.
I mean, he had to get over the Kuzma mini-boss to win this title. Think about how hard that is, to overcome a Kuz.
The interns had to award the coveted satin sash to somebody in the finals.
Anthony
And there was like
Davis,
4 or 5.
come on down.
There was 4 or 5 candidates on the Lakers, man.
Get in that trough, Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Just root around.
Be that wandering basin and nothing else. No, Anthony Davis was sick though.
He was sick, but even then, right? People were trying to be like, is he the best player on this team? Is it Anthony Davis? Like, after game 2 or whatever it was, like, it's Davis. Davis is the MVP. It was like, can we get serious?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Stop.
Yeah.
It's LeBron James, and will always be LeBron James.
Yes.
He is the greatest player of all time, and I don't view it as being that close.
And the code for a Davis supporter in that instance would be LeBron is not as good as Kobe or Jordan, and we know he's instantly better than Kobe. And Jordan's a top 6 player, which is no shame in that game. But LeBron James is on the throne by himself.
Has Anthony Davis passed Michael Jordan?
One could say the interns are trying to rank the best players of all time, and Jordan is falling so fast. I think your stat hog, your hero stat hog, is now just a hog, hogging up those slots in the top 10.
Well, who, like, being serious here for a second.
When am I not serious?
Come on. Who is the greatest Laker of all time? Is it LeBron James or Anthony Davis?
LeBron James. But then Anthony Davis is close too.
He's good. He's a good number 2.
Yeah.
There they are, the 2 best Lakers in history on the same team.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
I mean, this is pretty delicious for people like us because LeBron James is backing us up, man. All these takes are kind of coming true, and a Lakers fan might say, Lakers greatness. Fair enough. Lakers just tied the Celtics for overall championships. It's fucking LeBron, man.
I think you could also make the argument that though he's playing for the Lakers, LeBron did win with Heat culture.
He's a Heat day one.
It was the white hot Heat culture, I think, coursing through his veins that led him to actually beat the Heat. In some ways, as a Heat day one like yourself, I think the Heat did win this championship. This was a Heat title.
You know
They
who
kind
the
of
real
get two.
winner is?
They get
man?
one for the Heat and one for the Lakers. Like, incredible victory in two different ways for Heat culture.
The fans are the real winners here. I know we're watching these guys, but we're the champions, aren't we?
I'm just hoping the fans learn from Heat culture.
Rick Ross.
Heat culture involves such things as paying James Johnson $16 million a year and trading away Hassan Whiteside. Those are white hot.
Okay, so my anonymous sources in the NBA say the Heat were 2 games away from winning an NBA championship, and they have a slot for a max dude. Anthony Davis is on the table. Let's do this.
Look, he kind of lost to the Heat.
So
6
he
games,
lost to the Heat.
6 games, you lost to the Heat.
If you can't beat him, join him.
And when he's looking at what LeBron James brought to the table, he's like, I'm missing something here. He has something in his past that enabled him to ascend to this level of greatness that I can't get from being a Laker. And it's white hot Heat culture.
Right? It's that Pitbull vibe. It's that Pitbull wave, man. Do people still say wave? Jeez. Barely.
Sure. What about vibes?
I will always. That's like tie-dye. That'll never go away. Wave, I'm not so sure. I'm trying to bring back swag, but it's kind of working.
Swag was used by, like, Coach Vogel in the
No.
huddle. Like, it's...
But Coach Vogel has a little bit of that, right? Like, I like the way I like his tenor.
You like his Vogel intonations?
Vogelisms? He's on lead vocals.
That's so stupid. But here's what I want to do very quickly, because we're deep into this perfect pod. I want to run through a couple teams and like, what's the perception of this team and what's the reality. So let's just start with the Heat. I would say the perception of the Heat, and you could disagree on the perceived thing, is that the Heat are now a real force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference because they have Jimmy Butler, because they have Bam, because they have a max contract slot, because Pat Riley has experience building super teams together, and there is no powerhouse in the East that conceivably stands in their way. Would you say that is an accurate depiction of Miami going forward?
The perception, yes. I disagree with the reality of that.
Please tell me.
I believe they are exactly what they are, which is like a 4th or 5th seed, possibly a 3rd. I think, to our previous point, the bracket shakes out a certain way. Free agency, I mean, Butler remains a top 15 player, all-star for sure, probably moving forward. Bam is very good. I don't think there's a higher ceiling for Bam. This is a really high ceiling for Bam that he hit. They have questions like Dragic is a free agent. He was streaking. He's getting older. I think they're exactly where they are, which is like a very awesome team in the East that will make the playoffs.
I think it would be tough for them to put together a package for a superstar that does not include Bam, which then sort of erodes their core. Could you say, we'll give you Duncan Robinson and draft picks and Tyler Hero and end up getting a star back? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that star is on the table. If they can get Anthony Davis for money, game over.
I mean, that's right. That's not happening. What I'm saying is, okay, Victor Oladipo, he wants out. Can you bring Oladipo to the Heat for a package that primarily consists of their 2 young white gunners? Does that deal get done? Do you get Oladipo for those 2 guys and some picks? I don't know.
I don't think so. I wouldn't do that if I was Indiana. I'd look elsewhere. I think there's deals to be had. I think the players that Miami wants are all desirable. And I think there's a lot of teams with a lot of assets to counter.
Like Oladipo might be the most attainable on that level. Like, you're not getting Giannis for a package that is primarily based on those 2 guys. It's just not happening.
No, there's no chance.
And so I think Miami does have the potential to add someone good. They do have potential to add a big free agent. But Jimmy Butler is also 31. And he's not slowing down. He's great. And he's got a few more years of being fantastic.
Yeah.
But they also aren't necessarily like a young up-and-coming team either. They're splitting the difference in, I think, a nice way. But it also does require, I believe, like some pretty high-end talent to be added to what they have. Because I don't really think that this core is like a perennial finals team at all.
I just want to run through the free agent class. Obviously, AD. Brandon Ingram, restricted. He's probably going to go back to the Pelicans. Van Vliet, Nick Legend, so he's off the table. But he's unrestricted. But I don't think Van Vliet makes a difference exponentially in Miami. And then you're dealing with like the DeRozans, the Harrells, the Bogdanovi, Gordon Hayward, your favorite player, education reform.
But he's not going to opt out.
No, he's opting in, right?
I mean, I would assume. Yeah.
Does Gallinari make this Heat team better than the Bucks?
I don't know. Our sources said that they almost traded for him, but he wanted an extension. So he is someone that the Heat would be very interested.
I think
in
every team would want him, but I don't know if that team with Gallinari puts them over the Sixers with Ben Simmons. You know what I mean?
I also don't know. I mean, Gallinari is very good, and having two super high-level shooters on the floor out there, and then having Bam, Gallo, Jimmy, Robinson, Hero.
Nasty. That's nasty.
It's a really good offense, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how the defense is, but I don't know. I just don't think Miami, as currently constructed, or the moves they can make, turns into a team that I would necessarily bet on to make the finals, because the East has a lot of teams that are sort of on the same level.
Yeah, I agree. As Heat day ones, I expect them to repeat back to back. But the reality is their timeline, it has different shifts and different moves.
So let's quickly move on to Milwaukee, because I think this exercise is kind of interesting. And, Milwaukee Bucks had the best record in basketball. They were dominant offensively, defensively. They were a great, great team. I think they led the NBA in net rating by quite a bit. Giannis won his second back-to-back MVP.
One of the few coaches that matter.
Yes, and he was gifted Defensive Player of the Year that he did not deserve, but,
Team award.
Team award. They're really good. I have not heard too much about they need to shake things up. Are people kind of content with this Bucks team just running it back?
I am not on the pulse of Bucks Twitter.
No, me neither.
But when you're holding a superstar like Giannis, I think the conversation around the Bucks is how are they going to convince Giannis to stay. And, I'm a middleman and Middleton apologist, and I think he's great. You don't really get return for him in a trade. I think you run it back with the Bucks. Little moves here and there.
I think they did a pretty good job, and they ran into a team that had good solutions for the conundrums that the Bucks try to create. And it's Spo, but we did see the power that even one shooter that you can't leave alone presents for Coach Bud's defense. That is inherent on basically saying we'll let almost anyone shoot. And having one guy that you could not do that with did compromise their defense.
Yeah, I mean, that series against the Heat was tough. And you're talking about Duncan Robinson, right?
Yeah, and also they had plenty of guys, with Hero, like Olenek, Dragic. They had guys who were willing to take threes. Yeah. And that was always the recipe for knocking out the Bucks was, can you slow down Giannis and make him less efficient and try to score outside of the paint? And can you comfortably take 45 threes in one game and not get weird about it and not get uncomfortable and not turn them down because you want to get like a better shot? And Miami is disciplined. They just took them. You're giving us a three, we're taking it. We want it. Cool. Move on.
I saw a popular tweeter last night with the take that the Spo beat Giannis by taking away transition. That's not what happened. They goaded Giannis into shooting. I feel like is how they beat them. The transition was fine, I think. Always, I think it's, when a team goes down, the first thing your brain goes to is like, they mess up the easiest shot. And Giannis couldn't feast. I think
there's some truth in they did play very good transition defense. They absolutely got back and created sort of impermeable walls that Giannis struggled to get through without causing turnovers or charges. Like, they did a good job at that for sure. But I'm with you. They just prevented him in general in the half court from doing everything that he wanted. And Giannis still balled out.
Yeah, he was good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Giannis is not a bum in that series by any means.
So I think back to our exercise. I think the Bucks are good to go, and swap out Korver for someone else as long as their big three. I'm putting Brook Lopez into there. As long as those three guys are there, you're pretty good. Just mix and match. I think Bledsoe will probably get moved. Unfortunately, I'm a huge Bledsoe fan, but I
really like Bledsoe, but he keeps letting him down in the postseason. Whether it's just shooting poorly or injuries in a way that I feel like they're now sick of.
Yeah,
I think he's a good player, though. I really do like Bledsoe.
I mean, if you add him to, let's say, one of our two teams, like, we're not that bummed, right?
I think he'd be great on Philly.
I mean, it would be incredible. That's a chip right there, maybe. But so Bucks good to go. Perception is lower than reality, I think.
I think they should stand pat. That's generally my thing. Is just had a few tweaks. We talk about the Sixers so much. Let's just leave them out of this for now. Let's just talk about Houston for a moment. I think Houston is really interesting in that people have sort of decided that maybe Harden isn't as good as he seems. Maybe he has a ceiling in the playoffs. There's something about James Harden that does not put him on the same level as these other guys. And to that, I say, bullshit. Bullshit.
I agree. There's fan fatigue. That's why, LeBron James doesn't win MVP every year. If just in a vacuum, you looked at a player like James Harden and be like, okay, of all the NBA, I choose LeBron James or James Harden. Those are the first two off the table. James Harden is a basketball genius, and Morey should build around him to infinity.
So they were seemingly exposed in that series against the Lakers, who are a very good defensive team. And that's one of the reasons they didn't look that impressive, is because defense just is less appealing than like a snappy, incredible offense. Lakers beat the Heat with defense. They locked them down. The Heat got bad possessions all the time. Yeah. And they did a good job when they played James Harden. They would double team him a lot.
Yeah.
But let's go to the numbers very quickly here.
Let's do it.
In 5 games, James Harden averaged 29.4 points, 4.6 rebounds, 7.2 assists.
Is that good?
That is good. He also had a true shooting percentage of 664. 664. He was outrageous. He was unbelievable in that series. As he is,
yes.
It wasn't like, look, when the tough gets going, James Harden doesn't show up. No, he was a destroyer of worlds in that series. He was crazy.
Yeah.
And I know people will knock him and say, well, he's being passive here. Hey, man, that's the Danny Green conversation. Right. If your teammates open, you give them the ball, they have a job.
Yeah.
If that guy can't do that job, then it's on the coach to put someone else in there. It's on the GM to put someone else in there. Not on James Harden to get double teamed as soon as he crosses half court and to try to do something else.
Yeah.
This is basketball. It's a team sport.
Yeah. And I love the ups and downs of a player like Westbrook. And I think Westbrook is now a little maligned for so many different reasons, but not actually for real reasons. But he had a really bad playoffs, and he wasn't right.
Westbrook was the reason they lost that series, especially so decisively. Maybe they don't win it, but Westbrook was terrible. And I am a Westbrook apologist. He fucking sucked. He sucked. He couldn't
finish.
Awful.
He couldn't finish around the rim. It was just a train wreck.
So he had slightly higher usage than James Harden in that series. Averaged a shade under 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. That looks fine, but you go and look at his efficiency in comparison to that of James Harden. And Russ had really worked out a way to be a far more efficient player in the Houston system, but he was not in the playoffs. He was not finishing well. He was bricking jumpers. His overall efficiency by true shooting percentage was 47.9%. That doesn't work. You lose that series.
Yeah.
He went out and he shat the bed. And he had COVID. He was coming back from injury. This isn't not a let's tear down Russ thing. But when you want to look at why they were not competitive in that series, it was 100% on Russ. He was lousy.
So
not James Harden, man.
Let's do worldview with the Rockets, though, you know?
I think they're fine. Mm-hmm. I like what they did.
Would you run Russ back?
Sure.
Morey's going to do something because Morey is awesome and he never disappoints. You know he's probably shopping Russ, right?
I would assume he always is willing to shake it up. I don't know what the risk tolerance is from other teams for someone like Westbrook. You know, would Indiana say, screw it, let's put Russ into this mix? I don't think so. I think there is a measure of avoidance from teams because of his contract, but also, like, what does he do to your system? What does he do to your offense? Yeah. And he might have more value doing what he did post-Capella trade for the Rockets than he does anywhere else, not to mention that they already have to pay him.
Yeah. I mean, barring a three-team trade, bad teams like the Knicks and the Kings don't have the assets that Morey is probably looking for, especially since one of the Bogdanovi can be had for money.
Well, that's kind of what I'm beating around the bush to get at, is that a team might say, we'll take on his contract and we'll take Russ. Cool. We're not giving you anything for him because
Morey wouldn't do
he's
that.
got a negative contract.
Yeah.
So if you're the Rockets, you're like, well, he's good for us. We want something back, but no one will do it. So we might as well just hold on to him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think they're fine. I have no issues with their strategy, going small. No issues at all. I think if Westbrook plays better, as he did in the second half of the season, maybe that series is a lot more competitive than it was.
Yep, and Westbrook was hurt and had to deal with COVID, like you said, and I love their strategy so much that I really hope they just tweak it and don't make a wholesale shift.
So let's save some of these teams for like this conversation in like a week or so. Mm-hmm. You know, let's talk about the Clippers. We could talk about the Sixers. We could talk about Boston, which will all be delightful. Mm-hmm. But let's just talk about Denver for a second, because I know that's a team that you mentioned kind of being annoyed at earlier.
None of their fault. They did what they wanted, that they had to do. I'm sad we didn't get to see the Laker beaters play the Lakers.
The perception on Denver is probably accurate, that they are a young team. They have two excellent young players. They have some other skilled guys around. They might have to pony up to bring back Jeremy Grant. Millsap makes a lot of their cap and was not a huge contributor this season, so they might have some leeway to add more talent, guys who would fit better.
And he comes off the cap this year, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And he might have an opt-out. I don't know. I'll have to check.
Clickety-clack.
But and then they have Michael Porter Jr., who is a guy who is young and has a lot of talent and a lot of other bizarre issues.
Like being prom king.
Being a huge prom king, the satin sash master. The perception is that they are a rising force and have a very bright future. Would you go along with that?
I do. I would go along with that because Nikola Jokic is one of the best point guards the NBA has right now. He's awesome, and I think he's just going to keep doing awesome things. I don't think he's going to get better because he's already apex. And Jamal Murray is like, I like him more than you, but I agree with you that he's more towards the middle than he is the top. Awesome player. Keep him. He's making that Ben Simmons money. He's good to go. He has that same contract. And I'm not a Porter guy, but those two should be able to float them. It's a good organization who plucks players like Jeremy Grant from the pool, and I expect them to do the same thing.
Yeah, they've sort of become the organization du jour in terms of their employees going elsewhere. You know, they're one of their front office guys, assistants, or, you know, I don't know exactly the hierarchy and job descriptions, but they're sort of second in command went over to now run the Bulls. I believe another one of their guys got hired somewhere else. A lot of their assistant coaches are mentioned as potential head coaching candidates. Mm-hmm. So the Nuggets are definitely a hot organization, and I think they did a good job identifying young talent and taking advantage of guys in the draft that other teams were hesitant to take. Ultimately, I don't know what Michael Porter Jr. turns into, but half the teams in the NBA had a shot at taking him. And everyone had a chance to get Bol. Again, we'll see what happens. The perceptions that those guys were great picks, and they're going to be big parts of this organization, and everyone else is a dunce for not taking them. That could be true, but we'll also see.
KBB wise, I understand why Porter went so low, man. He is a walking basin, but also a walking risk injury, unfortunately, and that sucks. But that goes into evaluating a player like Bol, who none of the teams liked his physical for a reason, right? Like, we dance around this idea with KP, and skeptics like myself who love KP so much, one of my favorite Knicks of all time, the injury risk is real, and you hate to be the guy who said "I told you so" when he goes down again, but like, this is part of this player's DNA.
I'm looking at the Nuggets draft history, and it's a bit confusing to unpack because they've done so many trades. So, for example, they drafted both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, but they were also dealt. But you can't really hold that against them because those picks may have been made for Utah.
Sure, right.
And but they've had some success finding guys like Monty Morris and Malik Beasley, like in the late second round, late in the first. But they've also spent their picks on guys like Moody Eye. They've also
Knicks legend
taken guys like Wancho, who didn't really pan out so far.
I like.
I kind of like him.
Yeah.
So they are an organization that
they got Monte.
Mm-hmm. They've made some smart moves. They've taken advantage of the draft picks, but they have enough misses in the mix as well that you can't really look at it and say, okay, these guys are like, they're a damn cheat code.
But to your point earlier in the pod, I think drafting is the same with the playoffs. You miss. Mm-hmm. You can't get, if you get a handful of players in a few years, that's a success,
I agree. I think this is just sort of the cycle of employment in the NBA. Oh, this team, the Bucks have emerged, and they've found Middleton, and they drafted Giannis, and okay, cool. They must know what they're doing. We'll hire their guys. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But these are these arbitrary kind of results that inevitably happen. When, like, if you look at a bad front office like the Knicks, they still found Mitchell Robinson because if you make a bunch of decisions, eventually you're going to get a few of them right. You're not going to be wrong on every single one always.
And the Knicks do well in the draft, to be honest. After that is a different story. But the Nuggets drafted Nikola Jokic. Talk about a player who was ignored. They got an all-star late in the draft. They also paid Gary Harris, but then traded Nurkic for Plumlee, which I thought was a great deal for both teams. And Plumlee, even though he's one of the Plumlee I can't tell from a lineup, was a big part of what they were trying to do.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is that exact idea. Like, if you draft a Draymond Green, or you draft a Jokic, or you make that trade for Middleton, or you find a Giannis, people in your organization are going to have job opportunities elsewhere because those are those
Tyler Herro.
They're those maybe, but there will be Heat guys who will have a lot of options because those are the kind of things that go nicely on a resume.
Yeah.
Who are we hiring? Hiring, excuse me. Oh, he's the guy who found Jokic. Like, bang, love this guy. He found Jokic. Cool.
He was in the room when the Seattle Supersonics drafted Kevin Durant.
It's like, oh, you uncovered someone that everyone else missed. You must have an innate ability to unearth superstars in the second round. Like, we'd love to have those. Great.
Yeah.
Like, go find me another Jokic, man.
Yeah.
There's one on the planet.
Yeah, man. The way we frame GM and front office people based off of what they've done and who's available and willing to take the job is just totally random, I think. But yeah, if you if you find a diamond in that rough,
you will be rewarded as well.
yeah. And the Nuggets do that. The Nuggets are good to go too. I am a run it back guy.
I can't believe you went with diamond in the rough when we're talking about the Nuggets. It was right there.
It's a nuggie in that stream.
When you're sifting and you find that clump of bullion.
Yeah, am I just a run it back guy? I could be. I think certain teams have to make wholesale changes, but those teams also don't have to either.
Well, right. You're limited by the moves that you can make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very easy to say, okay, well, everyone should make a trade and just put Oladipo on their roster and give up nothing. That would make them better. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That would be a great move.
Yeah. I mean, the Knicks will have a starting lineup of Ben Simmons, Mitchell Robinson, Chris Paul, Paul George, and Keith Van Horn. Who's beating them?
The perfect lineup for the perfect pod.
Wow. We did it. We are the real champions, Ben.
And the fans. And especially the Patreons.
That's right.
Right before we go, this is really important. Can you quickly give us your fry ranks?
Oh, absolutely. Spicy curly fries.
Insane.
Spicy regular fries.
Bonkers.
McDonald's style.
Okay, fair enough. Now,
It's
and only
been the
now,
perfect
it is the
pod.
perfect pod.
Woo, that was clutch, man. Yes.
Wanted it more.
I wanted it more.
I think I wanted it more, but collectively, we wanted it more.
The fans wanted it more.
Fans of the winners, yes. Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.